Hi, my name is Ken, and I am here to talk about books, I guess. I know that a lot of booktube and book talk are focused on romance and fantasy. That's not my style. Recently I started reading again because high school and then university kind of ruined love of reading for a little bit. And I started reading horror books, having a good time. And I really want to talk about the books that I read. So I'm going to talk about A God in the Shed by J.F. Dubeau. J.F. Dubeau is from Quebec in Canada, which I live in Canada but not in Quebec. This is his second book, and I want to talk about it because I really liked it. Do I think it was perfect? No. We're going to talk about that more in a second, but for starters, I just liked it. It was just a good book. I enjoyed reading it. It's an easy read. The chapters are all really short, which means you can pick it up, put it down, come back to it very easily within your day. So I want to talk about why I liked this book, what I thought could have been done better, and I want to talk about it in two parts. So part one, a general review, like a plot summary, how I felt about it, what kind of person I think would like this book. And then I want to talk a little bit more about the specifics of the story, some of the critiques that I have, what I thought worked really well, what I thought could have worked better. Yeah, so let's get into it. So the story of A God in the Shed is about a small village called St. Ferdinand in Quebec. And it's about an hour out of Sherbrooke, and they have had a terrible history of constant murders done by the St. Ferdinand killer. But the story starts way before there is a St. Ferdinand killer. In the prologue, we meet Nathaniel Cicero, who is a young boy who's about to be sent off to a boarding school, and his last big summer before he goes away. And when playing in the woods with his friends, he finds a thing that is kind of human-like but featureless, and because they're children, they go, "That's cool, we're gonna play with it." So they start bringing up different games. It's usually different forms of hide and seek. They find out that this thing is really particular about rules. He does not like to break the rules. It gets really mad when other people break the rules. And at one point, it gets so mad it kills one of the children. Now, when it kills this child, Nathaniel is playing a game with it where if you are seen by the seeker, you're not allowed to move. So it's like a hide and seek tag stealth kind of game. Because the thing is so adamant on following the rules, it can't hurt Nathaniel as he stares at it killing his friend. So then he backs off into the woods, he gets the fuck out of there, runs. And that's where our prologue ends. I thought it was an interesting choice to tell us that much at the beginning, but I found out there's a good reason for that, and part of it is because what the thing isn't the most important secret in St. Ferdinand. So at the beginning of chapter 1, we meet Inspector Stephen Crowley, and he has been sent to go investigate the home of Sam Finnegan. And at this home, he finds the body of a dead woman that doesn't have eyeballs. And so he calls some people up. Randy comes along. Randy is the medical examiner. He's also a doctor in Sherbrooke because there's not really a place to have a doctor in St. Ferdinand, but he lives in St. Ferdinand, and he brings Erica, who's a psychologist, and he's examining the body. Erica's giving some ideas, and then they find out that there's a bunch of fridges all over Finnegan's property, and all of them are running, and all of them are full of bodies. So they go to keep looking at the rest of the property, and they find this cave, and in front of the cave is a bunch of sticks with the eyes of the victims on it staring at the cave. Now, you and I, we both know why. But these guys, they don't know why. They don't understand. Sam Finnegan shows up, there's a brawl, they fight, they arrest him. Now, nothing's keeping the thing in the cave. We also get to meet Venus, who is Randy's niece, and her friends, Penny and Abraham. We also get to meet Inspector Crowley's son, Daniel, and this weird, like, private investigator named Chris Hagen. And the mysteries just kind of built. In one of the refrigerators was the body of an 8-year-old girl named Audrey, and she is the child of the big rich people in town. But Audrey doesn't fit in with the rest of the murder victims, so they don't think Sam killed her, but they don't really know what killed her or who. And there's just like a bunch of shit that happens. So all in all, if you find that premise interesting, go for it. It is just like a very compelling read. There are things that will shock you. There are things that make you laugh. If you're interested in stories where like little mysteries start to build up and kind of pile on top of each other, I think this would be a great book for you. As far as horror, there are some depictions of gore that could be upsetting. There was nothing that made me feel particularly uncomfy, but that's me. You really know where your limits are. Nothing is really like overly detailed though. Just kind of general descriptions of what's going on. For content warnings, there are some murders, some cult style killings, some cults, animal death. There is a very gruesome depiction of a dead cat, but the cat death is integral to the story, so I like to give that a pass. If you're interested in like violent otherworldly beings or old gods in a Lovecraftian way, but you hate that every Lovecraft story is just, I saw the thing and I just couldn't comprehend it, I went crazy, and you actually want them to describe it to you, this is the book. This is the book. So I give this book 3.5 stars. I feel like that sounds low, but I take my rating system very seriously. I enjoyed this story. I loved reading it. There are a couple things that I thought could have been better, but all in all, it was pretty good. Pretty all around good. I do want to talk about some of the things that I thought could have been done better, but I'm going to save that for now, where we're gonna start talking about spoilers. So I want to start with something really positive. I love the characterization of the people in this book. They feel very real, their histories feel very real. There's this like constant looming trauma that everyone has because they've lost so many people to the St. Ferdinand killer. That's the kind of thing that this book does really well. I think that it's well written for the most part. The creature, the god, is so interesting. He's just like a little problem that likes to kill things, and I love that. I feel like I shouldn't say that I love that, but I love it. I loved the way everything built up. It felt very Twin Peaks to a certain extent. When I first started reading it, I was confused as to why they like told us about the gods so early in the prologue. And I was talking to my partner about it, and I was like, it's kind of like watching Twin Peaks and knowing who killed Laura Palmer. But he's the kind of person who watched Twin Peaks while knowing who killed Laura Palmer because he loves to spoil things for himself. So, I mean, I think it's a very apt analogy because you're not just watching Twin Peaks to find out who killed Laura Palmer. You're watching it for the cult stuff, the weird shit, Cooper being Cooper, weird creatures just showing up and fucking with things, weird prophecies, crazy shit happening. Crazy shit's happening all the time. And it's all like slowly building up, and then you just like get this release at the end. That's very much what this book is. There are cults, there are rituals. You find out that Chris Hagen is actually like Crowley's long lost son, that his like wife stole when she abandoned him and Daniel. There's so many times where like I'd read something and just go, whoa, shit! I know what that is. I know what that means. I know my annotation tabs are a little hard to tell apart because a lot of them are like, I went for bone colors, but these like really pale ones are literally just moments where I was like, oh my god, I know that. I know what that is. Holy shit, something's happening. It just happened like all the time throughout this book. Like the realization that Chris was Crowley's son like came in and like hit me with like a fucking train. It was just like, that's his son. And I was like, what? I didn't see this coming. That's fucking insane. Nathaniel Cicero comes back and he's like the oldest man alive. He's like 200 fucking years old and he runs a circus. They're like talking about how to kill the god and they're like, well, it has to be a weapon imbued by a god. And then Penny's like, I stabbed the god with a kitchen knife. Is that enough? Is that good enough? Can we kill it with that? Like, those moments are what make this book. It's not like a spooky, dreadful horror book. It's very much like a Resident Evil, like horror action kind of vibe, which I guess does make sense because the evil does reside in St. Ferdinand. But those are the things that sold me. The moment to moment, like quick realizations, this like leading up of like little clues, and then a sudden realization that hits like seconds before they like drop the bomb on me. That was what kept me going. That was what like held me into this book. It's a fucking roller coaster. You learn so many things. Also, if you were really worried about the cat dying and you're like still watching this because you're like, I need to know if the cat's dead for real, the cat's not dead. It comes back to life with no skin and is just like that for the rest of the book. It's fucking insane. Randy, oh my god, Randy, the fucking medical examiner, is a necromancer, like an amateur necromancer, and he has brought Audrey. He's not letting Audrey move on. He like nails her feet and her eyes so that she can see the real world and she doesn't get taken away by the fucking god because it eats souls. It's insane. Why is the god in the shed? The god went to kill some fucking birds. Venus put a camera in there to watch the birds, and then it got stuck because the camera was on it. And so he's like, you did this on purpose. And she's like, I didn't fucking know you were gonna be here. What the fuck is wrong with you? I love Venus Mackenzie. She is 15. And she hates her parents because they don't give a shit about her. They have let her be a completely independent woman. They do not tell her what to do. They do not ask things. She doesn't have a curfew. They just trust her. They just trust her and she hates it. She's like, I want you to restrict me in some way. We live in a town where there's a fucking serial killer and you don't care where I go and what I do. I could die at any moment. But I think there's a reason for that. And it's a reason that relates to what I think could have been done better. And it's hard for me to talk about it because I did love this book. I would read it and I would react like I was watching a fucking movie. Like I would gasp, I would laugh, I just like close the book. Sometimes I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like, so good. So good. And I need you to understand that 3.5 is not bad for me. That is above average. This is a book that did something. It got in there. It wasn't good enough to be a 4 because of what I'm going to talk about, and I don't know if anything will ever reach a 5. Is there really a perfect book? No, that doesn't exist. Everything could be a little bit better. And so when I tell you the things that I think could have been done better, I want you to understand that it's not me going, I hate this fucking book. This book was stupid because of this. No. No. I love this book. This is a good book. And it took a little bit for me to like sit afterwards and like digest it. But it's a good book. I just think that there were some small elements that could have elevated it and made it that much better. Now, this is only J.F. Dubeau's second book. And his first book, The Life Engineered. I don't even know what the fuck that is. Apparently it won a Dragon Award. Fuck yeah. Win that dragon, bitch. I criticize media, and I do it all the time, because I want the media that I consume to be the best it can be. And so when I talk about criticisms that I have for something, it's not because I don't like it. It is because criticism is very important. Criticism is so important to all types of art, all forms of media. If you do not criticize things, you are not thinking about it properly. Now, that being said, is there some media that you're not supposed to think about? Absolutely. I don't think people think that hard when they read like pulpy romance. I don't think people think that hard when they watch the like 12th Fast and Furious movie. And that's fine. That's okay. You don't have to think all the time. They think that when you are passionate enough about the media that you are consuming, criticisms will come naturally. So, that being said, my first big criticism is that there is a chapter in this book that doesn't make any sense. The whole chapter. In this chapter, Randy, who has been framed by Venus for killing Penny's mom, is in prison. And he had previously told the ghost of Audrey to go give Penny a message to get a list of names and objects out of his office in Sherbrooke. As far as he knows, at this point, Penny is the only person who has this information. And then, Paul shows up. Paul is Venus's dad and Randy's brother. And he's having this conversation with Randy because, surprise, surprise, everybody actually knows about the god, and they've known about it for years. There was an old cult that was trying to control the god, and there is a new cult that is still trying to control the god. And Paul goes to see his brother, and he says, I understand what you're doing. I understand what's happening. Please leave my daughter out of it. Leave Venus out of it. I don't want Venus to get hurt. And Randy says, she's probably halfway to Sherbrooke right now. He doesn't know she went. He has no idea. He only told Penny. And Penny's message that she got from Audrey was, Uncle Randy wants you to go to his office. Not Uncle Randy wants you to take Venus to his office. Uncle Randy wants you to go to his office and get these papers. Here is his drawing. It is minor, sure, but it was enough that it took me out of the moment and I had to go back and reread things to make sure I didn't miss something. And then later on in the book, Penny goes to visit Randy and he's like, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be in Sherbrooke? And I'm like, who knows who's going to Sherbrooke? How does anybody know anything? Nobody knows anything. So then I had to go back and reread the other chapter again to be like, does he know that Penny's in Sherbrooke? No, he only talks about Venus. And he thinks Venus is going there, but he doesn't know that she's going there. It was enough to take me out of the moment. And that is something that unfortunately will deduct points. If I have to remove myself from the narrative, I can't fully enjoy the book. Now, there's one other thing that I don't want to say it's a thing that I don't like, and I don't want to say it's a thing that I love unconditionally, because I think it could have been done better. So at the end of the book, Chris Hagen, whose name is actually Francis, takes the god away, which we have been told several times that his grandfather, Edward, got greedy in the past and accidentally re-released the god. So while he takes away the god, he says like, I'm gonna do something better than both my dad and my grandfather did, but I'm still gonna use it. And that feels like him repeating the same mistakes of his grandfather. That is not the issue, okay? There's more, okay? Keep with me. Venus has her grandfather's old notes and lists of places and names and things to go, and she's like, at the age of 15, I'm gonna go travel the world. I'm gonna see all these people. I'm going to see if they can help us, just like her grandfather, who is named Neil. So Venus is also repeating the actions of her grandfather. Early on in the book, Venus meets the god, and the god says, oh, well, we meet again, Neil Mackenzie. And Venus goes, I am not Neil Mackenzie, that is my grandfather. And the god goes, no, you are Neil Mackenzie. I would know you anywhere. And Venus has this moment where all of a sudden, like, the fabric of reality slips, and she understands in that moment that she is Neil Mackenzie. She is him living again. She is basically a reincarnation of her grandfather. While that premise slaps, it wasn't done to its most effective. The god fucks it up later, because when the god meets her father, Paul Mackenzie, he goes, well, if it isn't Neil Mackenzie. And when he meets Penny, he goes, well, if it isn't that woman that I just murdered. So it feels like he doesn't actually not see the difference between, like, past iterations of people, but that he just can't tell family members apart. And that just, like, confused me. I was sitting there going, do they all, like, smell the same? Like, how does it know? Why did it say that Venus was Neil, but also Paul is Neil? Paul gets fucking murdered. Paul gets murked and added to a giant flesh cape. It feels like it should have been more prominent that these two young people were repeating the same mistakes that their grandparents made. That they are them again, they're them born again, and they are continuing to fuck up because that is their fate. That is their fate as it is tied with this god. So then why is Paul also Neil? Paul can't also be Neil. and then it thinks that Penny is her mom, but like they were both alive at the same time, and it just made the god feel stupid. And it just didn't drive home that point that it's this like recurring cycle of people and events that just will continue on forever and ever and ever and ever. Because the god doesn't even know that. It doesn't understand that family members aren't the same people. And then at the end, so the book ends on this like revelation that the fortune teller at this circus is Venus's grandmother, but we know that. So when Venus's mom went to go see the god, she's like, hey, I came to make a deal with you. And the god went, I don't make deals with you. Fuck you. And she's like, what? You don't even know me. And the god went, I do know you, Katrina. You backstabbed me once. You're not gonna do it again. And Virginie replies by going, I'm not Katrina, that's my mother. And we are told that Katrina is the name of the fortune teller. But the revelation for Venus is that Katrina isn't her name, it's Elizabeth. And that her last name is her mom's maiden name. So that revelation that this lady was her grandmother would have hit harder, in my opinion, if when the god said, no, Katrina, you backstabbed me once, it's not happening again, I don't trust you. She went, who the fuck is Katrina? Like, what the fuck are you talking about, actually? Because then the reveal that the fortune teller's name wasn't Katrina would have meant more. But it doesn't mean more, because they just didn't care about that. They're just like, yeah, her name's Katrina. Oh, you know Katrina? Oh yeah, that's your mom. Yeah. And it felt like it should have hit more, because that's what they ended on. They ended on this moment of Venus realizing that everyone that the god has touched is connected somehow. And like, even all the characters that we follow through the story, they're all connected in these like little winding paths to each other. These little like strands of sinew and guts and muscle that bind them together. And that revelation is almost taken away for us because of the way that this was set up. I think that's all I have to say about this book, because I do want people to read it. It is very good. So, are you gonna read it? I don't even know if people are watching this. I'm just doing this for fun. If you read it, let me know. If you've already read it, tell me what you think. Do you think that the ending kind of missed a little bit because of what I said? Or do you think that, no, it slapped and it was hard and it was good and it was 5 out of 5, Kennedy? You're wrong. I could be wrong, I don't know. This is my opinion. Let me know. Au revoir. I don't know how to end a video. Should I end it by saying au revoir? That makes me sound pretentious. I am too from the other side of Canada to say shit like that. Peace.